Hey everybody, welcome to episode 106 of WP Roundtable. I'm Kyle. I'm doing WordPress stuff up here in Jackson, Michigan. Back from a long weekend at Kent, Ohio for a WordCamp. Had a great time hanging out with my good buddy who is on the show today, Mr. Adam Warner from SiteLock. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, Kyle. How are you?
Not too bad. I really enjoyed myself this weekend and getting back in the swing of things. Today was another fun MAWC, as we say in the community, Monday after WordCamp. We're all just recovering from the excitement and the stress and the challenges and the fun and the just overindulgence of all our friends and passion for open source for a couple days. So I'm picking up the pieces and getting back to work, and that's just been super fun. I'm looking forward to our chat tonight.
Yeah, I'm just beginning that journey. I just got in a couple hours ago off the airplane and kind of settling in. So tomorrow's recovery day, which is going to be filled with tons of work and follow-up. So it's the life we lead.
Yes, it is. But it's great. I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I look forward to the next time we're hanging out, which is not too far away, a few months. We're going to be together at another WordCamp here in the Midwest, and I'm excited about that. So we're going to spend the rest of this hour talking about you, Adam, and learning about all the things that you do, the things you've done, and the things you're going to do in the future. Try and cover as much as possible. Before we do that, we're going to touch on our quick picks of the week. So for mine, I've got a little blog post I read that I thought was particularly interesting and probably was shared by Brian Krogsgaard, which is where I get most of my news related to WordPress. It is a Medium article called The Quiet Crisis Unfolding in Software Development, which I really had a lot of takeaways from. It was interesting points about building a good team and monitoring your high performers and managing a team of software developers. The team that I manage is pretty small, but still I had a lot of takeaways about the importance of treating your team appropriately and putting them in situations where they can thrive. Just a long, well-written article by somebody who's been doing it for a long time, and so I'll share that. And Adam, do you have a quick pick to share?
I do. Two quick picks because I just thought of another one. One was, and both from WordCamp Northeast Ohio. One was Chris Lemma's talk about that the path being more important than the destination, and he had an interesting comparison of when you used to look for movies a couple decades ago, you would consult the local newspaper, you would look at the listings, and then how that went through the process of then it was Blockbuster, and then it was on your computer, and now you pull out your phone and you grab whatever movie you want and download it right to your device. I thought that he made an interesting had an interesting talk about that path, and so that was number one. Number two was I had a discussion with Ben Cool of A2 Hosting, and he was telling us how they develop, and they do paired, which I had never heard of before. They basically have two people working on the same problem. One developer is writing the code, and the second is following right behind, commenting the code and fixing any typos and stuff like that. And it was really interesting. And he said it's been a great thing for his development and for, of course, streamlining the workflow within the company. So I thought those were two interesting quick picks of mine. Nothing to link to, unfortunately, but
yeah, those are good. Some good stories. I appreciate that, and I do know have some good friends over at A2 Hosting, and they have done a lot to adjust the way that they develop. I know he's given some good talks before about their process, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. We've learned a lot from how they work. So let's talk about you, Adam.
Dun, dun, dun.
Get down to it. Give us the background a little bit, if you could. Step back in time a little bit, and we want to figure out the path you took to get where you are today. But if you want to just start at the beginning real quick, and we'll slowly meander our way to today.
Okay.
Tell us, like, when you were young, what it is that you really thought you were going to end up doing, that you wanted to do, and how did you get started?
All right, sure. When I was young, I was really interested in art. I was known as the artist in the family. So that meant every birthday and Christmas I would get a new set of colored pencils and a sketch pad. And I was always doing sketches of cartoons. I had a huge collection of Mad magazines, and I would copy the pictures, not trace them, but look at them and copy. And I had them all over my room. And then my parents were divorced and remarried, so I was going back and forth, which it worked out pretty well. And so on one side you had kind of one set of rules, and on the other side you had another set of rules, which was good for discipline, but also good for a little more creative freedom. And I remember specifically the day that my mom told me that I could draw my pictures on my bedroom wall. And I thought, are you serious? This is awesome. So my bedroom wall when I was a kid had all kinds of, cartoon faces and all kinds of little sketches and things. And then I would name them and, give them titles and things. So I was always interested in art. Through high school, I got really into skateboarding. I did a little bit of dirt bike riding. And then 11th and 12th grade, we had a vocational program, so you could go half the day to like a tech school. And I took commercial art because I'm the artist of the family, right? So that was, at that time, that was 88, 89, and 90, half of 90. So it was focused on commercial art, like creating posters and murals and advertisement type things. And then when graduation got close, I had never really given my future any thought other than because I was so into skateboarding, I thought I would go to California and work for a skateboard company and design graphics for skateboards. But at that time, it was pre-internet, and I really didn't know how to get the information I want and how to navigate and get to California for sure. I'd always been working, so I had a little bit of money saved up. Paper route was the first job, and I'll jump back and forth. Stop me when it gets too tangential. So I had to figure out what I was going to do after graduation. So the commercial art teacher at the tech school said, there's this college in Port Huron. They have an advertising design program. I think you should go there. So I did. So I got a degree in advertising design, and then I became disillusioned with advertising design because it was designed to make people want what they don't need and manipulate them, right? So I got all kind of high and mighty then, and grew my hair long and bought a Volkswagen bus and said, I'm not doing this. But of course I had to work. So after that, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but I basically went to work on the factory floor in West Michigan making office furniture. And I thought, okay, this is it. And I was raised in a blue-collar family, and that's what you did. You found a good company to work for, and you worked hard, and you moved your way up, and you had 2 weeks in the summer and 20-minute lunches for 30 years in the same building, and then you could retire and live the life you wanted. So I did that for a few years, and I was always doing kind of what I would guess now would be entrepreneurial stuff. I had all these little side businesses through my 20s and even in my younger years. So I was kind of feeling that itch, and as I was working at the factory, I was creating pen and ink portraits from photographs for people and selling those. And I sold a whole bunch, and they were in demand, and I thought, okay, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. This is going to lead me to the life I want. And then I tapped out my market. All the people in the company that I worked with, that was pretty much it, 20, 30 portraits later, and that dried out. So, so then I feel like it didn't go back far enough. So then 2011 came, or 2001 came, 9/11, and I was going through a divorce at the time, And because of 9/11, the office furniture industry took a nosedive because it was all government contracts, and they would renew every year to keep their budgets and that sort of thing. So we went through a round of layoffs, and because I was my personal life was going downhill, and I was feeling this itch to do something different. I remember going to my supervisor after the second round of layoffs and telling him, kind of on the hush hush, that if there was another round of layoffs, I'd like to be included in that. It's a pretty time like a cop-out decision, but in retrospect, in hindsight, I think I did that because I needed some outside force to give me that push to change, because I was so used to being comfortable in what I was doing. So that happened. I got laid off. I was completely separated, and now I had to figure out what to do next. So I went back to the other side of the state to that same school because it's what I knew, and I took a web design class. So back up just a few years, I was creating websites on my own. I taught myself HTML, and then I found GeoCities and started creating some awesome sites there with really cool moving graphics and stuff. And so I figured, well, that's my interest now. I'll go to school for web design. So I took a semester and I took web design and video production because I was also interested in video. And once I got into it and started using modern tools, Macs and stuff, I thought, okay, this is cool, and I'm pretty good at it as far as I understand the whole concept and stuff. So that's what I decided to do. So that was the middle of winter in Michigan on the east side, and I think it was called Lakeport, little teeny town, middle of winter. I rented this little tiny trailer that had a gas heater that had a pilot light that would go out when I was gone during the day if it was windy out. And I would have to go home and open the doors in the dead of winter and the windows before I went in and relit the pilot light just in case. I didn't want to kill myself. And it was the kind of place that was so remote. I had one of those old Sprint flip phones, and in order to get a signal, I had to put it in the window frame. And this is dead of winter now. You know how it is in the winter. It's cold. And when it would ring, I would have to grab it and run outside really quick and stand out in the snow, whether it was whipping blizzard or if it was, not snowing, to keep that signal and make my phone calls. Anyway, so it was a pretty isolated experience. I watched Happy Gilmore about 300 times on a VHS because I didn't have any cable or anything. And then, so I was on the internet at school most of the time. I would hang out at school pretty much until the evening, until it was time to go home because, whatever. It was boring there by myself. So I found some roommates on, I think it was called roommateservice.com. I have no idea if that's still around. But I found some roommates in Orlando because I had heard of this school called Full Sail. And I thought, that's for me. I'm going to go do digital media and web development, and the world will be right. So I packed up my stuff, gave away everything I owned except what I needed, packed my chocolate lab in the back of the car, and drove to Orlando and started living with these strangers, renting a room from them. The fourth day I was there was an ad on television for a job fair at SeaWorld. So I started working for a sister park of SeaWorld called Discovery Cove, where they do the dolphin interactions and stuff. So I was a Michigan guy wearing a flowered shirt and flip-flops all day at work, which was paradise for me, and still had no idea how I was going to go to this Full Sail school, which was super expensive, and I was still collecting unemployment from my layoff. So do you want me to keep going? Because it's kind of a long story.
No, it's a pretty interesting story. What year are we at by now?
Say what?
What year are we at by now?
This is 2002.
Oh.
So this is pretty short after the layoff because I was still getting the unemployment. So when I started this other job, of course I didn't get it anymore. So I was living with these people, working this job, starting to meet new people, and I was taking tours of people into the park, and that kind of brought me out of my depressive shell, because remember, I had just gone through a divorce and lived on my own for 6 months or 4 months, and then all of a sudden I'm thrown in the middle of a social scene again, which was good. I had to shave my big long Abe Lincoln beard to get that job, so which was probably a good thing too. And so I was working that job, and those people that I were living with, it started to get kind of weird there. I'll leave it at that. And it was uncomfortable for me. So I was starting to look for a new place to live. And I was walking through the park one day, and I walked past this girl, and then I turned around and I said, "Hey, if you know anybody who's looking for a roommate where I can bring my dog, please let me know." And she was like, "Okay, I don't know you." So I started walking back up, and then she came up to me and said, "Hey, wait, we might be looking for a roommate. Go talk to this girl in guest reception." So I did, and they showed me the house. It was a 4-bedroom house. It was 4 roommates living together, and one had just left. And long story short, I ended up living with them. They became some of my closest friends, and one of them is now my wife. I had a good core group of friends there. We got really close, and then 2004, a couple of years later, some family stuff happened up in Michigan. It was kind of like 3 things, one after another. My dad had a heart attack, my brother died, and then my mom had a heart attack. So as you might imagine, living in Florida and your family going through that kind of stuff, I felt the pull to come back, and I don't know what I intended to do other than just be there, you know. Mom and dad just had stents, and they're still going today, so that's good news. So I went back to Michigan, all the while doing website and video stuff kind of on the side. I thought I would make short videos like the Lonely Island guys, but nothing was really coming to the forefront. So I needed a job. The first job I had back in Michigan, and this is early 2000, well, this is 2004-ish somewhere, was at Red Lobster. I was a server, and I hated it, and it was the middle of winter, and I had to drive like a half hour to get to that job, and I just did not like it. So I found another job doing customer service for an audiobook publisher, which was in a cubicle, and they sold cassette tapes, CDs, and then MP3s were kind of like the hot technology at the time. And I was doing that, and then the friend that I made at that house in Florida, I invited her up to come to Michigan to go to a Beastie Boys concert in Chicago. So she came up, and we went to Chicago. We took the Amtrak down, because on the west side you just take the Amtrak down. It's a 3-hour drive or 3-hour ride. We went to the concert, and then after the concert we went to some pub, and that's when love happened. We had our first kiss, and then we went back to my parents' house. She went back to Florida. We kept on the phone, and then I don't know, maybe a couple of weeks later I said, "Well, why don't you just move up here?" And she was like, "Okay." So a month later she packed up all her stuff and moved to Michigan, and she ended up getting a job at the same place where I was working in a different department, but also doing customer service. And then from there, this is now probably 2005, I had started a DVD. I feel like I should take a break. I feel like this is a really long story. No? Keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I enjoy the story.
So I had started another kind of side business because my brother had died I guess the year before. That inspired me to create a DVD memorial business. So I was taking images, photographs from people, and scanning every single one, doing color correction on every single one, cropping every single one, and then throwing them into iMovie and using Ken Burns to go in and out. and putting titles and things, and then I would put whatever songs they wanted that were important to the dearly departed, and create a DVD for them to play at the funeral. So I was doing that kind of here and there and on the side, and then I made an agreement with the local funeral home to be their guy to do that, all the while working this full-time 8 to 4 job or 8 to 5 job. And I did that for about a year, and that got really, really old. I mean, old because of lack of sleep, because I would leave this job, I would go to the funeral home, pick up the photos, and then I would start working on it all night long. And in those days, when you're rendering a DVD on a Mac, you had to wait until it was done to test it to see if it actually worked. So I would find myself laying on the office floor at 3 in the morning and listening for the DVD to eject so I could throw it in the DVD player to test it, because I had to get it to the funeral home by 7:30 so I could get to work on time so they could have the service at like day. So it was a 24-hour turnaround, and it was tough. But so I had a website for that, back to website, and now we get to WordPress. So I had a website for that business. I wanted to update it faster and quicker because I had little time, and I found WordPress in 2005, and of all the open source stuff I tested and installed, WordPress was visually the one that made the most sense to me way back when. I didn't even know what version 2005 was, like 1.5 or 2.0 or something. And that was where I fell in love with WordPress. So as I learned how to do things, and I was Googling and I was on the forums, I started my own WordPress tutorial site. And it was WordPressModder.org or .com at the time. So I would just kind of post things that I learned, and then that all of a sudden kind of got some traction and some feedback, and I thought, oh, wow, cool, other people are interested. And at the same time, I had been in a video blogging group in Yahoo since 2003, and so then I tried to create my own themes, video-specific themes, and at that point, there were no video-specific themes. So I taught myself how to do that, and then, yeah, that kind of just went on for a while. With that job, my cubicle was next to the IT guy. He knew that what I was doing with WordPress, and he knew I was interested in web development, so a position opened there. I applied for it, got it. And so then I was maintaining the updates for this audiobook publisher website, which was all built in classic ASP. So I had to learn that. There was no WordPress to be found, but it was fun. I learned a lot. And fast forward another couple years, and well, not even a couple years, that company was acquired by Amazon. So I became an Amazon employee, and so did my wife. Oh, we got married too in 2006 in Michigan. So we were both Amazon employees, and we had to wait for 2 years for our stock options to vest. So we were on top of the world. Therefore, a Florida girl coming to Michigan, the first year is, wow, this is really beautiful. The second year is, wow, these winters are really long. And the third and fourth year, it's like, wow, I need to get back to some sunlight, because really the lack of sun, the not being with her family or friends, it took its toll. So we started looking to get back to Florida. I found a job in Sarasota with a ventilation systems company that had a 6-page HTML website at the time. Came in with them, put them on WordPress multi-site. We had 8 different web properties. I was doing a little bit of internet marketing for them, a lot of SEO stuff, and it was more like a product catalog. There was no e-commerce or anything. But I really loved that. I really enjoyed having that immersion daily into WordPress, all the while still doing WordPress stuff on my own, right? The tutorial blogs, and I was messing around with affiliate marketing and that sort of stuff. Excuse me, I'll take a drink. Jabberjaws. So this is now, it was 2008 when we moved to Sarasota, and working for that company, and then I'm probably jumping forward a little bit, but in 2011, I was doing some client work, and they needed a Gravity Forms extension built to do something custom. So I was on the Gravity Forms forum, putting my code up there, and this guy named Brad was helping me. And we went back and forth, and we took it offline. I said, can I just hire you to do this? We did. The client was happy, and then we continued the conversation. And I should preface this by saying I learned through those years that I am not a developer, I am not a coder, and I am not a designer. I tried to be both, but it's definitely not what I excel at. And up until Tom McFarlane coined the phrase of implementer, I used to call myself a WordPress website architect, because I was paying attention to the community. I was paying attention to what plugins and themes were new and being used most. So I knew how to put the pieces together. And then part of the fun for me was marketing and spreading the word and being involved. So 2011, Brad and I are talking about, I'm saying, I have all these plugin ideas. Can you build them? And he's saying, well, I have all these plugins built, but I need to market them because I'm selling one and it's going pretty well. And this is kind of not the beginning, but it's starting to become known that you can sell premium versions of free plugins. So we teamed up and we created FooBox, which is the Lightbox plugin that we have, responsive with social sharing on top of it. We were selling that just by itself through eJunkie. And then in 2012, the company I was working for, the parent company decided to close the Sarasota office. And I was left with the decision to try and stay with them and move to Sweden or Kansas, or to find something else. So and this was a month, we found out a few months before our son was born, and I decided to go off on my own with my partner Brad and create Foo plugins and sell more than just FooBox. So I quit that job. I started working from home a month before our first son was born, and I'm so glad I did. But it's been a long journey, a long struggle. But I was able to be there in the early days of our son, and now 4.5 or 4.25 years later, still working from home. It's been a real roller coaster in that time, but Foo Plugins is stable and steady and slowly growing. And I'm still doing WordPress stuff.
So here we are.
Here we are. Yeah.
Let's cover just a little bit about the time you've spent with Foo plugins, because that's been you've been doing that for a while, and your business has been around for a long time. Your catalog of plugins is impressive. So how did that company evolve? How did you build out that catalog and take the products to market and get a name for yourselves out there?
Well, it's been a lot of trial and error, a lot, and we still don't have it perfect. When we created FooPlugins.com, we had, I think, we put all of Brad's plugins that were on the repo on there, as well as FooBox and a couple of other small paid ones. And we launched it officially at WordCamp Miami 2012, I believe. And that was a good decision. So for anybody out there who has a product that they want to either launch or get some visibility instantly within the community, do it at a WordCamp. So sponsor, spend the money to get t-shirts, and invite a couple people and just talk about it. Talk about what you're doing, what it is you have. Don't sell it, of course. Just talk about it. So then from there, we were pretty pleased to have some immediate uptake and immediate revenue. And then we just did the old internet marketing thing. I was toying with the Warrior Forum, selling it there. But if you know anything about the Warrior Forum, it's hit or miss in terms of quality of products and quality of people, and you really have to work hard to kind of gain the trust of people that you're putting out some quality product, and you're not going to have a 10-mile long sales funnel trying to upsell them on stuff. So then it was just a continuous being active in the community and putting out articles and blog posts and listening to user feedback and adding new features and creating and hitting that mail list with every new feature that we added. So it's been slow growth. We probably could have done. I know we could have done a lot of things better, but it was all bootstrapped. So we would do what we can until we ran out of money, and then we would wait and get a little more money, and then we would do what we could until we ran out of money. And remember, at this time, I had a few clients, but basically no other income coming in other than that. And it was a roller coaster in terms of revenue. So we would push a promotion, things would be good, and then they'd slide off. So in the last 4 years, it's been that roller coaster. We would get to a plateau and then go up a little bit and then get to a plateau. So real slow growth. So I had to start taking on client work, which I enjoy immensely, helping people achieve a website that meets the goals of what it is they're doing. But I really do not enjoy the proposal process, all the time spent doing that, and then the back and forth. And a lot of that, 90% of that I take responsibility for not having proper processes in place to avoid, the endless back and forth or the changes and that sort of thing. And then, of course, with a baby in the house now turning into a toddler, I would get interrupted, and my organization would get disrupted, and so I desperately wanted to get away from client work. And then we had baby number 2, who is now 2 years old. Which compounded the chaos issue in a good way. Don't get me wrong. Just not in the best way for the business. So, or for my sanity. So in that time, and we can talk about this later, we kind of mentioned it before the show a little bit about mental health and stress and stuff. I got to the point in about January of this year, a little bit before, that I needed to do something different. I needed to get out of my home office. I needed to get out and talk to people again on a regular basis. And I knew I needed to do that in the WordPress community because that's who I love and what I love. And I started looking for 9-to-5s local. And I knew I shouldn't even have done that, but I did a few interviews, and it just wasn't going to work with our schedule because my wife works in retail and she commutes an hour each way. And sometimes she's in the morning, sometimes she's at night. Now our 4-year-old is in preschool. Our 2- and 3-year-old is going to grandma's house for the day. So I'm bringing one to school, then to grandma's, then back home. So my workday typically doesn't start until late morning, and then it just ended up being a short day. So now that the 2-year-old is in preschool, they're both in preschool, I started looking. The 9-to-5 schedule, I just knew I still couldn't do. So I started reaching out into the community. I paying attention to evangelist positions. You want me to go down that road now?
That's where I was going to go next.
Okay. So I started looking for evangelist positions specifically, found a couple, interviewed with a couple, and one I was really hoping for, and I made it to what I understand is the last round, but I didn't get chosen. That was a huge bummer because that was the first one, and I thought, this is it. So I was pretty down about that. And then the second one that came along, it wasn't a right fit for me because I couldn't get behind the company that wanted a WordPress evangelist. after talking with them, I didn't feel like our values aligned, and that they were doing it purely for sales and not to better the community in any way. So then I had put in this resume that came across for a WordPress evangelist for a company named SiteLock. And then I kind of forgot about it. And it was about a month later, I was contacted through my personal website, adamwwarner.com, about an advertising opportunity. Someone wanted to advertise on my site because they saw I wrote about WordPress a lot. And so we scheduled a conference call, and that conference call, I happened to mention, it happened to be someone from SiteLock interested in helping me do better on the site. I mentioned I threw in my resume a while ago, and one thing led to another, and had a deep discussion with them about what I saw this position to be. They told me what they saw it to be. Our values aligned. They are 100% committed to serving the community in the best way that they can. And so I accepted the WordPress Evangelist position with SiteLock.com. And they are based in Arizona, and I am based in Florida. And so far, it has been working out really well. I'm really enjoying the position, and I'm enjoying what they are doing so far internally. And I'm really excited to be able to talk about that in the months to come. So that's where I'm at now.
So we're talking about SiteLock a little now. It wouldn't be a bad idea for us to dive in and have you describe just briefly as you like what it is that SiteLock does.
Okay, so SiteLock is a cloud-based website security service. So they protect 8 million websites, and 1 million of those are WordPress websites. They've been around since 2008. So their main products are, it's called Smart Scan, and it's basically a file scanner for your website. So once you are on the Smart Scan service, you give you have your SiteLock dashboard. You connect via FTP. You give it credentials. What we do is we download all the files daily. We scan them for malware. And what's different about SiteLock from other security services is that we do auto malware removal and then re-upload those files to your site. And if there are indications that there's malware where it's going to cause issues, if it's auto removed, or if there's things that the auto detection system isn't quite sure about, it will flag them. So you have all of these notifications in your SiteLock dashboard of what was found and what needs to be done. If it's something new that's found or questionable, it goes to the research and development team at SiteLock, and they figure out what it is, and if appropriate, add it to the auto malware removal service. And then on top of that, and that happens daily, and then on top of that, they have a web application firewall called TrueShield. And that, if you're not familiar with WAFs, it's basically an extra layer of security to route good traffic and bad traffic. And that comes with a, for lack of a better term, a information system or an encyclopedia of what's good and bad, and software that helps detect that. So those are the two main services that SiteLock provides. And interestingly enough, I went to Arizona to spend a week when I came on with the company to, of course, meet everybody, get familiar, meet the research and development team, which are, as you would expect, just rows and rows of screens. It was like the Matrix in there. It was really impressive, the knowledge that was in that room. And so I put the service on my own sites, and the first day it found 120 malicious links in my comments from blog posts in 2008, 2009, and I had no idea we were there. So so that made me a fan. So yeah, so far things have been going well for my sites. So I part of my job is to just talk about the importance of website security, because a lot of people don't put that on the forefront. And a lot of people don't understand why someone would want to hack your little mom and pop site, or, you know, my blog's not important enough for people to want to hack. But I try to make people understand that it's not that you're being targeted specifically. It's these automated scripts and programs that look for vulnerabilities in any site and then look for a way into the server so it can propagate into bigger and bigger things and then get the information they want, or to use those servers as a back end for some other nefarious acts. So my job is to spread the word about website security and why you should at least have some basic stuff. You should at least have some scans, take the extra step of putting the web application firewall in front of your traffic. And then, of course, my job is to listen to the community. It's the community that I'm in. It's the community that, again, I love, and I feel like cheesy saying that, but it's true. So part of my job is to listen and get feedback and see what's new, what's old, what people are complaining about, and see if any of that is something that we can take care of as a company, that I can take back and say, hey, listen, this seems to be a real pain point for people, or this process isn't working. What can we do to help make that better? So in a nutshell, that's a WordPress evangelist at SiteLock.
Wow, that's pretty powerful, Adam. So I got a question for you. We'll see where this goes. I was wondering what advice you would have for the people who feel as though other factors in their life are putting pressure on them to maybe go in a different direction career-wise. And you, as someone who has made a lot of changes and followed the long and winding road in your career to get to where you are, and has, from your story, a lot of career changes based on other factors in your life, like relocating to a different state or changing industries or layoffs or all kinds of things, changing interests. What advice do you have for that person out there who maybe likes what they do but feels pressure in their personal life, or maybe doesn't like what they do, but just making a good decision about what to do with your career? When is the right time to make a change?
Good question. And again, I'm no expert, but I'm just sharing where I've been so far, and I'm sure there's a lot more changes to come. But my advice would be, so when I was going through that divorce and I got laid off from my job and I decided to go to Florida, I was 30 years old. And I'd been out of Michigan here and there, but I've never lived anywhere else. I was comfortable in that existence. And again, like I said, I kind of needed someone to give me that push. So like if it was my own decision and it was wrong, I wouldn't be responsible, you know? So my advice is not to twist that around and make someone push you. But my advice is to follow your passion, no matter how dark or bleak it seems, as far as nothing's ever going to come of this. I don't know why you're doing that, blah, 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 blah. And something I always try to keep in mind personally is that everything you do, every single thing, whether it's good or bad, a success, a failure, is all one step in the path to something else, right? So if my brother wouldn't have passed away, then I probably wouldn't have made the video slideshow from his photos. Then I wouldn't have had that photo memorial DVD business. I wouldn't have built a website for it. I wouldn't have wanted to make it faster to update the same thing, so I wouldn't have found WordPress. If I wouldn't have found WordPress, I never would have got into the IT department with that company, and so on and so on and so on. So I'm also a big believer in visualization, visualizing and asking the universe or your higher power or whatever it is for the things that you want or where you want to be. Because I think by putting that out there, it will come back to you. So I really try to visualize things so I can realize things, right? Without sounding, too ethereal or anything, but I really believe that, and I've seen it happen. And I'm a big believer in positivity, and I'm a big believer also in, if you have negative people, places, or things around you, to cut that stuff out of your life, because it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't have to be in a mean way or a nasty way, but move away from that. So I've been in situations where there were, I was in a location that wasn't conducive to me being happy, or there were people around me that weren't supportive, or they were, the Debbie Downers, the people who are always complaining. And why do you think people are always complaining? Because, well, they're putting all that negative stuff out there, so that's what returns to them, so then they can complain more. So I'm just a huge believer in that. And so far it's done well for me. So my advice would be to never, ever stop. If you really are truly passionate about something, and this probably sounds cliche if you listen to, like, Tony Robbins or someone, but never, ever, ever stop. Of course, you have to pay the bills, and you got to pay, you got to pay rent, and you got to put food on the table, and you can do that. And just, by the way, when I was in that customer service position, like the first year, we would switch shifts and stuff, and so sometimes I would work till 11 at night, and I was the only one there answering phones. But we had these little comment cards that would come in through the mail, and we had to type all that information from the comment card into our system. And I'm telling you, I hated it. I tend to try not to hate things, but I hated that. I would dread going into work because I knew I had a stack of comment cards to sit there and type all night. So the cat's out of the bag. What do you think I did? I worked on my WordPress websites, and I was checking out new plugins. And I was following my passion while I was at this job. Which I'm sure it's safe to say now, but yeah, I guess that's it. Follow your passion, know and believe that there's a success at the end, and it'll never stop. I don't know. Is that a good answer? I don't know. I feel like
I like it. There's a lot of takeaways in there. So something else. You've been in the WordPress community for a while, and in a variety of capacities, doing freelance client work, selling your products, building a plugin business, and working for SiteLock, which plays a big role in the WordPress community. Where do you see the great opportunities right now for those looking to find their place in the community? Are there great opportunities for people to become freelancers, start their own agency, provide client services in new, exciting ways? Are there great opportunities to invent new products and new services built around WordPress? What are some of the things that stand out to you as the really exciting places somebody looking for their place could jump into?
Well, a few things. One of my predictions is I think we will see more companies hiring WordPress community evangelists, because not only because WordPress now powers 25% of the web, but because it's continuing to grow and the community's continuing to get larger. And I think the proof is in the pudding with what other evangelists have done for brands and for the community. So I think there'll be more of those positions, and I've actually talked to several people at WordCamps where they feel like I did, like I'm not a developer, I'm not a designer, I'm not this, I'm not that, but I love WordPress and I love building websites and I love talking to people, and I'm passionate. So there are people out there that would fit that role to a T. The other opportunity I see in the coming years, and I think we're still, excuse me, we're still in the really early stages of WordPress as an application framework. Of course, people are doing really cool things with it, and it's going to continue to grow. But I think what we'll see in the next, probably, I would say 3 years, maybe sooner, we're going to start to see kind of an app store type repository for free apps using WordPress as the backend. And then, of course, I think you'll see paid apps probably come up either first or at the same time, because I think as the backend of WordPress grows more powerful and JavaScript is utilized more and people kind of settle on JavaScript framework or frameworks that kind of are preferred, I think all that's still kind of bubbling around and that's going to come to the top. But I think you're definitely going to see a product market come out of that. Yeah, and then maybe way into the future, maybe WordPress will be the engine powering some VR stuff. I don't know. I had a couple of interesting conversations at WordCamp Northeast Ohio with people doing some pretty cool stuff, just kind of playing around and testing, and then we were talking about the future. So those would be my three. The two most important would be the evangelist positions are going to grow, and apps, WordPress apps will come.
That sounds pretty exciting and surprising. I'm sure that if you stepped back just not even that long, just a couple of years, all that you just said might have sounded like crazy talk to a lot of people in the community. So it's fascinating that this is where we are.
Yeah, like the first product or service I became aware of that used WordPress as the backend that didn't look like WordPress was Happy Tables, the restaurant service from Human Made. And I thought, wow, I don't even know that's WordPress. And so then with JavaScript, learning JavaScript deeply, as Mr. Mullenweg has stated, I just think it's going to continue to grow. But I think there's going to be some growing pains. Obviously, the REST API is not done. It's got a long way to go still before it's fully in core and vetted. So yeah, that's it. App stores, app repositories, apprepository.org. I think there's and I should test this. I think there's a URL called apps subdomain that redirects somewhere. Yes. So if you type apps.wordpress.org, you will be redirected to wordpress.com apps. So who knows what's going to be there eventually.
Who knows? Things are very interesting, and I'm not making too many predictions because I'll probably be wrong.
Well, I'm probably wrong too. Who knows?
I mean, it sounds smart to me. You've been in the community for a long time, and you see the writing on the wall. So, yeah. Not to
Time will tell.
I think.
Yeah.
So our hour's pretty much wrapping up very quickly. So I've got just a few more questions for you that we'll try to squeeze in.
Okay.
Number one, what's on your schedule for the rest of 2016 where somebody might bump into you in person?
Well, let me go ahead and pull that up here. I will be 7 days from now. I will be in Vienna, Austria at WordCamp Europe. I'm very excited about that. It'll be my first trip to Europe ever.
Wow.
So I'm super excited. So Vienna. Then I will be in my hometown of Sarasota for WP Campus, which is the first ever WordPress event, not officially sanctioned by WordCamp Central, but first WordPress event for higher education folks. And that is literally 15 minutes down the road from me, so I'm excited about that, to be home. Then I will be in Boston, Toronto, New Orleans, Columbus, Tampa, Nashville, a day of rest, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The list goes on and on.
And probably Ann Arbor.
Oh, of course. I'm sorry. I didn't get that far down my list. I thought I was naming too many, but absolutely in Ann Arbor. And I really hope to tag on a family trip onto that camp. But I heard it's one of the best word camps of the whole year, so I'm super excited about it.
Those weren't the words that I said when I described it, so it must have been someone else.
Oh, yeah, I've heard it from several people.
Yeah, word gets around.
No,
And
seriously, I have heard it's been great.
good, good. We're gonna try and top ourselves this year. See how good we can get it. Very excited. I'm very excited that you're going to be joining us. So, and you've got a lot on your schedule this year, really making the rounds. So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's different, 4.5 years in your home or garage office, and then all of a sudden you're gone every other week. It's been a different schedule change for all of us with the family, but it's been good.
Wow, well, that's cool. That's cool, and I'm happy that I'll get to bump into you all the more often because I enjoy going to these events as well.
Yeah, me too.
All right. So, do you have any recommendations for me on guests that I may invite on the show in the future?
Ooh, yes. I met a young lady. Oh, hold on. FaceTime. Whoa, FaceTime jumped in. Uh, I met a young lady at WordCamp Northeast Ohio. Her name is Megan Morrissey,
All
and
right.
she is a young developer. And the more I talked to her, the more I was impressed by her interest in building plugins and tweaking things, and she's just getting started, kind of in that realm. I think she's been doing it a while, but she's getting started with her deep interest in plugins. So, I would recommend talking to her. Or a guy named Michael Hull that I met in Asheville. He was on my podcast a couple weeks ago, and his background is in math, and he has a very interesting kind of story as well and how he got into WordPress. Or I don't know. There's just so many to choose from.
There's a lot. It's a big community.
Yeah. Or shoot. Now I feel put on the spot. I know there's more people that I would love to see and hear their stories.
Well, they're all going to watch this, and they're all going to be really bummed that you didn't mention their name.
I know, man. Ah! What a jerk I am.
Yeah. Not a big problem.
I'll email you a list.
Great. That'd be awesome.
Okay.
Well, that about wraps up our hour. I think, real quick, if you wanted to, since you brought up your podcast and we didn't even get to touch on it at all, can you give us a quick spiel for that?
Just a really quick one, because it started in 2011 with 4 episodes. Then it took a hiatus, and there was 2 episodes in the fall, and now there was 1 new one. So it's not really a thing yet. It's called Don't Panic with Adam W. Warner. It covers WordPress, but hopefully a lot more than that. That's it. Don't subscribe yet.
Try.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Go ahead. No, check it out. It's hopefully you'll like it.
All right. I listen to a lot of podcasts, so
Yeah.
it might just make my list.
Okay. Yeah. With my travel schedule, I've got tons of stuff to listen to and watch now. So that's a really a big bonus of traveling too. I have time to consume content.
Yeah. I do appreciate that too. The road trips and the plane trips, I just kick back and catch up on my feed.
Yep.
That's all the good stuff. So much out there. Awesome. Well, it's been a great discussion, Adam, and I've learned a lot about you and some good advice. And I really look forward to hanging out a little bit more in the future. I hope everyone else has some takeaways from the show. And I wish you the best. Thanks for coming on.
Well, Kyle, it's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me to be on, and I hope my story helps inspire others that whatever it is they're interested in, they can do it just like I am. So, yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
My pleasure, Adam. This is episode 106. Thanks for watching.